In the murky depths of Elmwood, a small town veiled under the never-lifting fog of its haunted reputation, there exists an old, weather-beaten house that locals only whisper about. They say that once you know about the house, it knows about you. It began on a peculiar night, one filled with the sort of oppressive silence that weighs on your chest and creeps into your bones. It was that night when the first tendrils of the shadow reached out towards the living, enveloping them in a darkness denser than the fog that swallows this town whole every evening. This isn't just a story, it's an invitation, a segue into a world where the boundary between the dead and the living thins, sometimes enough to let things slip through. We're walking into the shadows, but fear not. Every chill down your spine is simply a trace of the truth. The house, known by the Elmwood locals as the Maw, isn't merely an architectural relic. It's the centerpiece of local lore, the kind of place where stories breed like shadows in perpetual twilight. Built in the late 1800s, its time-worn walls and peeling paint betray a history richer and darker than the town's own archives can remember. In these walls, the timetable of eternity seems to stutter. Inside, corridors stretch longer than the house's modest footprint would suggest. Rooms cold enough to see your breath in midsummer are standard. A frightening, if not intriguing, tapestry of events makes up the very essence of the Maw. To step into the Maw is to feel countless invisible eyes stitch your every move. Visitors often speak of a feeling, no, a certainty, that they are never alone, that their every whisper is heard by unseen attendants eager for the living's warmth. The first documented encounter that triggered the modern wave of interest in the Maw was the experience of Julia Anderson in 1982. As she recounts it, it began as a murmur. Then, speaking like a loved one long gone, they called my name. Julia and her family had just moved into the Maw, unaware of its notorious past. By day 3, objects moved on their own. Photos turned face down. It was subtle, then all at once, overwhelming. If the house initially whispered, it soon began to shout. Her story, corroborated by physical evidence and the testimony of the town, led to the house becoming a focal point for both skeptics and believers, each group eager to explain or experience its odd phenomena. Delving into the historical origins of the Maw is like tracing the veins of a ghost. Built by Jonathan Carver in 1894, the house became the site of numerous unexplainable occurrences almost immediately following its completion. Through journals and old newspaper clippings, we piece together that Carver himself was deeply involved in spiritualism, a popular movement at the time which might explain the initial hauntings. Yet, no records can justify the extent of what occurs within those walls today. Is it purely residual energy? Or did Carver unwittingly, or perhaps deliberately, invite something more permanent? This part of the story remains a blurred line between folklore and fact. Investigative teams over the years have captured EVP's electronic voice phenomena within the Maw's walls. These recordings, some chillingly clear, suggest presences trapped or inhabiting the house. One audio capture includes a voice that chillingly says, "We remain," followed by an almost imperceptible string of whispers. Reviewing these tapes provides a harrowing insight into the invisible world that thrives in the Maw. Analyzing these sounds poses more questions than answers. Do they arise from echoes of the past? Or are there darker forces at play within the home's confines? To understand the depth of the Maw's mystery, I, alongside a crew of paranormal researchers, spent a night inside. Our experience was nothing short of paradigm shifting. The night was punctuated by phantom cold spots, fleeting shadows, and a pervasive sense of being watched. Our equipment registered significant temperature drops and captured several anomalies on film, At one point, a visibly agitated silhouette dashed across the corridor, disappearing before it could be followed. This personal insight into the Maw's oppressive ambiance was compelling. Experiencing the inexplicable firsthand bridged the gap between detached curiosity and visceral understanding. Over the years, many have occupied the Maw, and few have left without a story. These accounts form a chilling chronicle of the house's oppressive influence on the living. Robert Clark, a former resident, shared, "It felt like being in a crowded room, even when I was the only one there. Each story layers into the next, painting a complex picture of a location imbued with an inexplicable power. These narratives, with their rich detail and personal touch, are perhaps the strongest testament to the Maw's true nature. They serve as the living's interactions with the beyond, documented in the raw. Despite reams of anecdotal evidence, the scientific community remains skeptical about the claims surrounding the Maw. Yet, no conclusive explanation counters the experiences had within its walls. Research continues, bridging methodologies from environmental science to psychology, aiming to demystify what many consider supernatural. The ongoing scientific inquiry into such phenomena not only challenges our understanding of hauntings, but also explores the limits of scientific explanations against the anecdotal. Studying the Maw. In this light doesn't diminish the mystery. It adds dimensions to our perception of reality and the paranormal. The story of the Maw, with its complex interplay between folklore, personal testimonies, and scientific exploration, invites a larger discussion. Where does the balance lie between the embrace of mystery and the skepticism of science? This exploration isn't just about a haunted house. It's a mirror reflecting our wider cosmic fears, curiosities, and the inevitable confrontation with the unknown. The Maw continues to be a nexus of supernatural discussion, symbolizing a junction where different beliefs, experiences, and disciplines meet. The Whispering Shadows. A true haunting, therefore, serves as both a tale and a study, a fusion of darkness and light, begging the question, what truly lurks in the shadows? In the murky depths of Elmwood, a small town veiled under the never-lifting fog of its haunted reputation, there exists an old, weather-beaten house that locals only whisper about.